Salãmun Alaykum, everyone. Um, Today we're gonna start, God willing, from Surah 27, verse 45. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Uh, Saleh. We had sent to Thamud their brother Saleh, saying, "You shall worship God," but they turned into two disputing factions. He said, "O my people, why do you hasten to commit evil instead of good works? If only you implore God for forgiveness, you may attain mercy." They said, "We consider you a bad omen for us, you and those who joined you." He said, "Your omen is controlled fully by God. Indeed, you are a deviant people." There were 9 gangsters in the city who were wicked and never did anything good. They said, "Let us swear by God that we kill him and his people. Then tell his tribe, we know nothing about their death, we are truthful." God protects the believers. They plotted and schemed, but we also plotted and schemed, why they did not perceive. Note the consequences of their plotting. We annihilated them and all their people. Here are their homes, utterly ruined because of their transgression. This should be a lesson for people who know. We save those who believe and lead a righteous life. Lot. Lot said to his people, "How could you commit such an abomination publicly while you see? You practice sex with the men lustfully instead of the women. Indeed, you're ignorant people." The only response from his people was their saying, "Banish Lot's family from your town. They are people who wish to be pure." Consequently, we saved him and his family, except his wife. We counted her among the doomed. We showered them with a certain shower. It was a miserable shower upon people who had been warned. Make no distinction among God's messengers. Say, praise be to God, and peace be upon his servants whom he chose. Is God better, or the idols some people set up? Um, so, so these are the precedents that God has set for us about communities. As we can see where God sent messengers, and we see, first God sent Saleh to the people, and uh, their response, and you see God's system, always is that, God will always save the believers and always annihilate the disbelievers after giving them sufficient warnings and chances. And we see the same with the people of Saleh. I mean, they turn into two disputing factions, and we can see, people doing that when they receive the truth. Um, and the people actually considered them bad omens. Uh, and this is such a similar behavior to the disbelievers when someone comes to them who presents to them the truth and tries to help them out. They look at their own miserable lives, and then they try to find things that are wrong in their lives, and then they blame uh, these people for these bad things in their life. Um, you know. So imagine, like, you going to a town full of bad people, and you're sent as a messenger, and then these people are having disasters upon disasters because they're bad people, but then they say, We're having these disasters because you are here," without considering what they're doing. And I mean, and obviously, the messenger's response to them, that his omen is controlled by God. Nothing bad comes from God, but if you do bad things, obviously bad things will happen to you. Bad things will not happen to you because of someone else. Bad things will happen to you because of you. Um, and these you can see these 9 gangsters. I mean, I like the fact that he uses the word gangsters here. and how they're so they sound like they would be so righteous, like they plan to kill these believers, um, and his, basically Saleh and his followers, and then they would tell the tribe, they would lie to the tribe, saying we know nothing about them, about their death. We're truthful. But as God says in verse 50, they plotted and schemed, but we also plotted and schemed. And before they could, execute that plan, God basically annihilated them, and they were left, as it says, utterly ruined. Um, uh, so these are lessons for us. Obviously, same with the people of Lot. I mean, uh, we can see that now, same kind of evil behavior as you can see with the people of Lot. I mean, it's so normalized now in today's society, in the West and in around the world now, where you see people publicly and lustfully, you know, uh, practicing sex with men instead of women. I mean, homosexuality in general has become so normalized in today's society. Like it's like it's considered to be some in the same category as like gay rights, so-called rights, same category as like women's rights or animals' rights, which is ridiculous, you know. But these people are so shameless. However, God has set these precedents for us that for us to learn from, and when God says that, in another verse, to be careful of a retribution that will not be limited to the evildoers around you. The example given in that verse is that of homosexuality. A community that tolerates homosexuality, could be, hit by an earthquake, and so uh, that reminds us that, while all these things are happening, we should not be one of those people that would be passive and not make a stand against, or at least not contribute, to this sort of behavior. Like, we have to make sure that our words or our actions, do not contribute to this sort of behavior by other people, and we don't comfort and encourage them in this behavior. We should try to talk those people out of it, if anything. If you know someone who is close to you or something like that, and he, decides to tell you about this lifestyle, then, instead of comforting them, our responsibility is to try to talk them out of it. And it's very easy, these days to get sucked into it, even when you don't want to. I recently started working on this one project, and then it was all about helping alcoholics recover, and then soon I found out that it was actually not just limited to that. It was all about, also about, like, helping these people date, and then it was, and not only that, then it was helping like the homosexuals also, and but I didn't realize at the time like how bad it was until, you know thank God that I ended up not being part of it anymore. God made it so that I ended up being not part of it anymore, and then I was wondering why, and then suddenly it hit me. I was like, wait a minute, I was actually I was actually being a part of it without even realizing it, because they were building this application, and this was actually helping these people, meet up, and it was becoming like really, really popular, among the general public. And thank God, he saved me from that. But yeah, we have to be careful. Just this, sorry about the tangent, but we have to be careful not to get sucked into something like that and contribute to this sort of evil behavior. Um, and then verse 59 tells us not to distinguish or make a distinction among God's messengers. Um, this verse, because it says, "Peace be upon his servants, whom he chose." Like, it doesn't say peace. Like if we have to, you know, do that. I mean, we should do that for all the messengers and all the prophets. But it's not only messengers and prophets. I mean, this is about all of God's servants. Peace be upon all of God's servants and praise be to God. Um, so, inshallah, we'll continue. Verse 60, God alone worthy of worship. Who is the one who created the heavens and the earth? Who is the one who sends down to you from the sky water, whereby we produce gardens full of beauty? You could not possibly manufacture its trees. Is it another God with God? Indeed, there are people who have deviated. Jesus, Mary, Muhammad, the saints, etc., never participated. Who is the one who made the earth habitable, caused rivers to run through it, placed on it mountains, and created a barrier between the two waters? Is it another God with God? Indeed, most of them do not know. Who is the one who rescues those who become desperate and call upon him, relieves adversity, and makes you inheritors of the earth? Is there another God with God? Rarely do you take heed. Who is the one who guides you in the darkness of land and sea? Who is the one who sends the winds with good news, signaling his mercy? Is it another God with God? Most exalted is God, above having any partner. Who is the one who initiates the creation, then repeats it? Who is the one who provides for you from the heaven and the earth? Is it another God with God? Say, show me your proof if you are truthful. Say, no one in the heavens and the earth knows the future except God. They do not even perceive how or when they will be resurrected. Okay. So, throughout the Quran, all of these verses are basically reminding us of one basic principle, which is to worship God alone. One basic commandment in the Quran is to worship God alone. And we find these everywhere in the Quran, and but it's amazing, like, for people to be able to read the Quran and say they follow the Quran and then fall into idol worship. It shows how difficult it is for you know human beings to go through this test without falling into idol worship. It's like the one thing that they can't get away from is idol worship. Because that's that's what their inherent tendency is, because of the decision that they made up in the heavenly society. And their souls are uh, you know not worthy of being redeemed, and their belief in the hereafter is not strong. So these people, I mean, a lot of these people do believe in God, right? But still, then they commit idol worship. Most people do believe that God is the one who created the heavens and the earth. He caused the rivers to run through it, uh, all these things, but they still fall into idol worship. But we must realize that, if God is the one, and God is the only one, who created the heavens and the earth, who sends down the water from the sky, you know, who creates the beautiful trees and plants, who made the earth habitable, placed on the mountains, created a barrier between the two waters. I mean, all of this, no one else can do this beside God. You know, who's the one who guides you in the darkness of land or the sea, who controls the winds, who initiates the creation and repeats it? Only God. Who provides from the heavens and the earth? Only God. And yet, these people idolize other idols besides God, fully knowing that God is the only one who is in full control of everything. Uh, and these people are doomed by Satan because of their own behavior. Um, And then it says, indeed, most of them do not know. I mean, they really, I mean, people do acknowledge that God is the one who created all of these things, but they still commit idol worship, knowing that because um, their belief in the hereafter is not solid. And that's actually takes me to the next verse. It says, believing in the hereafter, great obstacle for most people. Verse 66, in fact, their knowledge concerning the hereafter is confused. In fact, they harbor doubts about it. In fact, they're totally heedless thereof. Those who disbelieved said, after we turn to dust, and also our parents, do we get brought out? We have been given the same promise in the past. These are nothing but tales from the past. Okay. So these are not necessarily people, making statements about the hereafter who are, disbelievers. These are many people say these things in their subconscious, deep in their minds, with their lips, they might profess belief, but God knows what's in people's deep inside people's hearts and their subconscious, and that's what really counts. And this is what most people, it says great obstacle for most people. So most people, this is what they tell themselves, but right now, if you look at most people, they'll say, yeah, we believe in the hereafter, but we know they don't, because their actions show otherwise. And that's the same thing they tell themselves, and when we really think about it, I mean, this is so absurd because um, why do people think that it's so difficult? This it comes down to God's omnipotence. But why is it so difficult for people to believe that God can do that? I mean, uh, He does that every day when we go to sleep, and He brings us back to life every single day. You know, so subhanallah. Um, but it's a great obstacle for most people, and it turns people into hypocrites or idol worshippers, and they're doomed for eternity. So we have to make sure that we're not one of those people, and really look inside our hearts and see where our how certain we are about the hereafter. If it's really something that we keep put into account when we look at life. You know, uh, inshallah, all of us are among the blessed, people who uh, you know do truly believe in the hereafter, and are guided by God. But a lot of these people are just wishful thinkers, and they just offer lip service, and that's why God does not guide them. Verse 69, say, roam the earth and note the consequences for the guilty. Do not grieve over them, and do not be annoyed by their scheming. They say, when will that promise come to pass if you're truthful? Say, you're already suffering some of the retribution you challenge. Your Lord is full of grace towards the people, but most of them are unappreciative. Your Lord fully knows what their chests hide and what they declare. There is nothing in the heavens and the earth that is hidden from God. Everything is in a profound record. So God tells us here that He really knows everything that these people believe, everything they declare, and but also everything that they hide. So God knows what is in their chests, but He also reminds us not to grieve over the wicked scheming of the disbelievers, um, because everything has its set time. God gives people enough rope, basically to hang themselves. I mean, these are criminal people in this world who have decided to side with Satan. You know, so all they're doing is providing evidence against themselves. And really exposing what they're capable of and what is inside their hearts. and that's why God is allowing them to do what they're capable of and do all this kind of scheming and plotting, and so they can really, you know, uh, incriminate themselves and provide evidence against themselves, um, which is why we're really here to provide that evidence for ourselves and to expose. Believers are there to expose their qualities, and the disbelievers are there to expose themselves. So verse 76 says, this Quran settles many issues for the children of Israel, issues that they are still disputing, and most assuredly it is a guide and mercy for the believers. Your Lord is the one who judges among them in accordance with his rules. He's the Almighty, the Omniscient. Okay. Therefore, put your trust in God. You're following the manifest truth. You cannot make the dead nor the deaf hear the call if they turn away, nor can you guide the blind out of their straying. The only ones who will hear are those who believe in our revelations and decide to be submitters. Okay, so mashallah, God is telling us that this Quran settles many issues that the children of Israel are still disputing. And how the Quran settles those issues is by telling us the truth. For example, one such issue being the birth of Jesus, right? The identity of Jesus. And the Quran gives us the correct history of Jesus and what happened. So now we can no longer dispute it. I think circumcision obviously is also one thing that is disputed by the Christians and Jews. The Christians believing that they don't have to do it and stuff like that, while the Jews believe. And I mean, we have the clear answer in the Quran. It's nowhere to be found. So they obviously there's your answer. Um, and same as so many other things, they have so many other disputes about um, history and about Abraham's progeny and everything, and all of those things are settled by the Quran. We have the true lineage of all the prophets and messengers, and what each one of them did in their entire story, that everything that's relevant to us, our salvation, is mentioned here. So it is really a mercy that God has sent this scripture for all of us, um, to point out the truth. But God tells us to, first of all, to put our trust in God, because when you're reading the Quran, you're following the manifest truth. I mean, this book is proven beyond any doubt to us by the mathematical, physical, tangible evidence, the mathematical miracle of the Quran. So we should have no doubt whatsoever. And we're being reminded that despite all of these miracles and all of this powerful evidence and all these straightforward verses, that we cannot make the dead or the deaf hear the call once they decide to turn away. I mean, this is um, impeccable system that God has put in place to weed out, the hypocrites from the true believers, and so those people will never listen to the truth. They cannot hear it because they're. It's. I mean, God has given the allegory of people that are dead or deaf. You know, so just like a dead person can't hear anything because he's dead, or someone who is deaf cannot hear anything because he doesn't have the ability to process, audible information. It does not have the tools to process that information, or is not in working order. Obviously, they're not going to hear anything. Same with the disbelievers. I mean, they're actually shielded by God. God says He places a veil on their eyes, and uh, you know, uh, so their hearts and minds are shielded, so they cannot hear the truth. I mean, you can say it all you want, and you can show them all the evidence, but and we've seen that many times. Different groups of people, different categories of people. I mean, you can present to them all the evidence, but at the end, what matters is what's stuck in their head. This little roads that they have trapped themselves in, where they only see the truth that is reflecting their own personal opinion, and that's all that matters to them. Um, but God says, the only ones who will hear you are those who believe in our revelations and decide to be submitters. So those who truly believe, not those who give lip service, are the ones, uh, people who decide to submit to God, are the ones that can actually hear and believe. And those are very few. Verse 82, the computer is the creature. At the right time, we will produce for them a creature made of earthly materials, declaring that the people are not certain about our revelations. The day will come when we summon from every community some of those who did not believe in our revelations forcibly. And the footnote for verse 82 says 27, footnote for 2782 says 2 plus 7 plus 8 plus 2 equals 19. The computer was required to unveil the Quran's mathematical miracle, and it proved that most people have discarded God's message. See appendices 1 and 19. SubhanAllah. So, and we all know that computer was a creature that was required to unveil the Quran's mathematical code, back in 1974. And you can read Appendix 1 to learn more about it. Um, but it's really interesting. I mean, when you think about the computer, and how it functions and how it thinks. I mean, it's like a creature, and it gets more and more, sophisticated every day. But this was crucial in providing the physical, tangible evidence and unveiling it for the entire world. By its nature, that we now know that most people have discarded the Quran. I mean, it proves to us, that all this nonsense that these people are preaching, has no basis, and we have to worship God alone. And and the fact about the messenger of the covenant and the truth, and so many principles of the Quran, even all our religious practices, everything is mathematically coded, and proven by God's messenger of the covenant. So we have no doubt about anything. We have no doubt about worshiping God alone, about what our practices are, because they're all mathematically proven, and how many units we have to pray, and everything, mashallah. So we are incredibly blessed by God have to be born in this era where we have this evidence for ourselves, mashallah, and we can look at this physical, tangible evidence that was unveiled using the computer to really strengthen our faith. I get really surprised by people who say they're submitters, but they never took the time to understand the Quran's mathematical code, and they say, well, they believe, you know. But I don't think that until someone really studies the Quran's mathematical code, I mean, if they're really truly believers, they will make the effort to understand, to some extent at least, the basics at least, to understand what this miracle is all about. And I've seen people that say they believe in everything, and they're literate people, but then they can't understand the Quran's mathematical code, and I find it really odd. But I think it's very simple to understand, mashallah. And if someone's guided by God, I mean, obviously, this will, you know, uh, is a very powerful, miracle. One of God calls it, the messenger of the covenant calls it the ultimate miracle, and the Quran says one of the great miracles. So, I mean, you can't say you're a believer, but then, you don't value the miracle. It's just doesn't make sense. But thank God, we have this now in our time. So, this book, everything in this book is being mathematically confirmed to us. Like we should not have even a shadow of doubt left, after going through the miracle. And then the last verse, obviously, it says, "The day will come when we summon from every community some of those who did not believe in our revelation, in our proofs forcibly." And it says, "Study the Quran's mathematical code. When they arrive, he will say, 'You have rejected my revelations before acquiring knowledge about them. Is this not what you did?' They will incur the requital for their wickedness. They will say nothing. Have they not seen that we made the night for their rest and the day lighted? These should be sufficient proofs for people who believe. On the day when the horn is blown, everyone in the heavens and the earth will be horrified, except those chosen by God. All will come before him forcibly." So, as the subtitle says, study the Quran's mathematical code. I mean, God has given us this mathematical evidence. It's all basic mathematics, so we can all understand it. It's not that difficult, obviously, and we should take the time to go through it. If anyone has not gone through these appendices, I highly recommend them to go through it and read it. I mean, it really helps you strengthen your faith. And uh, and then God is telling us about people who rejected the mathematical miracle without ever examining it. So and obviously their requital is hell. um, and then 86 and 87 is interesting. I mean, well, 86, have they not seen that we made the night for their rest and the day lighted? This should be sufficient proofs for people who believe. I mean, the day and night itself is such a huge proof that God does it for us every day, and it's like seamlessly converting the entire system upside down, like uh, the plants, for example, giving oxygen during the day and carbon dioxide at night. I mean, all of this stuff is just happening repetitively, and how the sun comes up, and all of that is happening every day at the right time, exact. And this itself should be proof for us, but God says most people uh, do not believe. Uh, and then just last 187, God says, "On the day that when the horn is blown, everyone in the heavens and the earth will be horrified, except those who are chosen by God. All will come before him forcibly." So, God willing, you know, uh, we are one of those people, God willing, uh, that uh, should not be horrified. We want to be uh, one of those people who are, God says, these people were chosen by God who will be saved on that day, who will not be horrified by the events on that day, because it is a truly horrible event when, it's the most horrible thing you could ever imagine that has ever happened in the history of anything. So, but we have to pray to God that we are one of those people that are saved from the horrors of that day and are guided by God. So, I think at this point I would like to stop, and then if you guys have any comments or questions, you can continue, God willing.
Masha Allah, Salman.
Thank you.
Yeah, mashallah, praise God. Very good job.
Thanks.
And Masha Allah, someone, the verse, I'm going to make a comment
Hmm.
about 59. I mean, I've been thinking about this verse. Mashallah, it was like, before the study, I was like trying to do some homework to see the next Quran study. And the subheading that says, make no distinction among the messengers. And I'm like trying to think, uh, how do you say that, how does this verse explain about distinguish? I mean, I don't see. Yeah, we do know that two other verses where God says, you're a Christian Jew, and you believe in God and the resurrection and thereafter, they have nothing to worry. But in this verse, and I'm trying to think, what does it say? And then, Marshall, you tackled it pretty good. That no makes sense.
So,
Where it says, "Say praise be to God, and peace be upon His servants, whom He choose." Is God better, or the idol some people set up? So praise be to God and His servants, the servants with S. So, and that's what we've been doing all of our life. That we just, whenever we used to mention God, and we just pick one messenger, and we always praised Him, and forgetting that God has gathered all the servants. So just mentioning one messenger, uh, then you are making distinguish, and that's like, oh yeah, that makes sense now. That where the subheading, where does it fit? So, mashallah, that was a
well, we
very
don't
good point.
praise them. We
No, we
just peace. We say peace be
yeah,
upon
yeah,
them.
sorry, yeah, peace be
Yeah.
upon it. Sorry, my fault. Yeah, peace be upon all the servants, not just picking one servant. And just like this been the problem with every generation, whoever the messenger sent to them, and they praise their, oh, peace, or they just like add him. But here God is saying, peace be upon his servants whom he choose. So whoever God has chosen, we say peace be upon all of them. So thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to say that.
Okay, thank God.
MashaAllah, Salman. Great study.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
thanks
was
so much.
quickly doing my sunset prayer.
No problem.
Almost was about to lose it.
Well, so congratulations.
Thank you, MashaAllah. I have a comment regarding study the Quran's mathematical code. That is so true, that you have touched upon it. And I also have seen a lot of people uh, who became submitters, mashallah, because other people gave them message, and by the grace of God, they accepted Rashad as a messenger of the covenant and followed the religion, but didn't really get into the mathematical of the Quran. So these are the people, sometimes they complain, would say, like sometimes you will say, oh, mashallah, I just saw 19. We understand the value of number 19 and how it is related to Quran and how it is called the signature of the creator by the messenger. So whenever you see 19 somewhere, you think about God, right? Basically, you think about God. It's like mathematic signature of creator, right? And these people would say, oh, haven't you gone too far with number 19? Are you worshiping 19 or something? Basically, when I checked out, these people had never studied the miracle. So they really had no value for 19.
Mm.
And that really did, that was, I few people who were complacent like that, I actually checked with them and they never studied the miracle. I
Mm.
mean, not that I became a really learned person in depth with the
Mm.
miracle, but at least, you know,
Mm.
I tried whatever I can grasp, but it's quite deep. But
Mm,
even that is enough to shake you up, like you
mm,
say, wow. And the reverence about God and everything, it increases,
no, no,
and the how much we have to value Quran actually as a book of God. Yeah.
so,
And you touched it that we must study, we must make time to study the miracle. Mashallah.
so. Yeah, and I mean, I was talking about the people of Lot, and how these people are, practicing sex with the men instead of the women. And it's ironic, like this year we have a presidential candidate who's married to a man, you know, and
Who's that?
Buttigieg,
Oh,
yeah,
from
he's
which
he was
party?
born he was born he was born on I think he's a Democrat. He was born on January 19th.
Oh my
He's
God.
and he's 38 years old.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's so weird, but yeah, it's really bad. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh well, you know, everybody's in this. People, this is what
Sorry,
can you do?
could you please repeat that?
No, I'm saying we have a presidential candidate who's quite popular right now. He's running for president, and he's married to another man.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, okay, got it.
yeah.
What's his name?
Pete Buttigieg,
Hmm,
Buttigieg.
okay, all right. It's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah, I think yeah. Sorry, I didn't even know that the background. Anyway, thanks.
Well,
I posted an article today, and actually, from the article, video. From the video, it seems a lot of people turn that way based on a lot of abuse of different type from childhood. And I don't know if you guys saw the video, but the video was all about them, wanting to change, and they've changed, and some of them has changed for over 26 years now.
Masha Allah.
And almost everybody in the video, they went through so much of abuse from childhood that they were led down that path. And I think a society, when we see people like that, we shouldn't write them off. We should find a way to, I remember one guy in the video, he said, I was, I think, 18, and he had already lived such a life. And he said, I was 18, and he's like, one friend literally, drag him to church. And when he went there, his life totally changed. What he saw in the people, he didn't have for himself, and he totally changed. And in his case, his mom was abused so much that any masculinity he showed as a child, the abuse went to him. So he started acting like his sisters, and he started doing a lot of things that would please his mom, right, in a feminine way. And then he was led down that path, and then he changed.
Yeah, a lot of people have many reasons, but the society is encouraging them
Mm,
to just don't even try any other way. This is it. This is what you are, and just choose this path because you have must come out. The
mm,
thing is, they say, like probably every man has homosexual tendencies in them if they want to, but it's a choice people make, right? And the choice is so encouraged. I'm not saying everybody's story is the same, but if people would choose God sincerely, they will think about other alternatives, right? The thing is, what is the worst thing? Idol worship, right? And when you're an idol worshiper or you're homosexual or committing any sins and major sins, small sins, I mean, we know idol worshippers will not make it to heaven. So then all these other diseases related to it, I mean, we cannot, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's all name of one thing. It's all Satan's ways to, distract people from God's ways, um, and not choose God and not find solution in God's teachings, because it's all there. If people, and now they have given it such twisted, like made a communities out of it, who embrace you and who will take you under their wings and comfort you and help you in every way. So now it's people, it's a politically so accepted that every vice and sin is like accepted and given names somehow. This is the way society is going really fast towards the end, unfortunately. Yeah, Pamela, that's true. If somebody has the courage to guide these kind of people with a true religion, or if they have any concept of heaven and hell, they might not choose such path. I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, people will choose whatever they want to do, right? But the key point is, it should not be encouraged.
Yeah,
Um,
mashallah.
that's the whole point. And we as a society should not be encouraging this behavior.
100% agree. Yeah.
God gave
You're
everyone a free will. I mean, they will do whatever.
mashallah.
But at the end of the day, that us, I mean, that should not be part of the encouragement.
Exactly. Yeah, mashallah. You nailed it. Praise God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mashallah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, sorry. I was just gonna say that not only that, but I mean, like the Master of the Covenant, how we explained, like, we should try to talk them out of it. Like you try to talk to these people. I mean, you don't run away from them, obviously. You don't write them off, but in that way. But I mean, of course, you can write them off later if you find out that they are one of those people who don't care and they just want to follow their lustful desires. But I mean, you have to try to help them if you know them and they come to you, let's say, for example, talk to you about it, then you don't encourage it, but at the same time, like, you try to talk them out of it. Like, I think the example you gave about literally dragging them to church. I don't know if you should literally drag people, but you should try to help them, invite them to the truth and, help them to encourage them in this manner to find the right path.
I guess you can only literally drag someone. It depends on the relationship you have,
Uh,
right? Like somebody close relative or a friend, or otherwise that would not be easy.
well, I mean, literally dragging them would be kind of like forcing them, you know?
Yeah, no, like, hey, come with me just one time. You
Right?
can only do that to a very close friend or relative,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Otherwise, you can't do it to a stranger. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what he meant. I
Right. Well, you said literally, so I was just picturing someone being literally dragged to the church.
a- actually someone posts that in my Facebook feed, and a homeschooling friend, and I took a look at it, and it really changed the way I start. I think, because normally when you see people in that lifestyle, you tend to shy away, and especially if you have kids around, you wouldn't befriend them or wouldn't talk to them. because you're trying to bring your kids away from that kind of society. But it really did, that video did open my eyes that we shouldn't write anybody off. You know, it doesn't matter who it is, we shouldn't write people off.
Right, of course.
Well, of course,
Yeah.
we shouldn't, but then, there's obviously people that we need to keep away from at some point, right? I mean, if they don't care for your advice and they choose that path of disbelief, and then then what would you do? You know?
I guess it would be same as like any disbeliever or idol
Mm,
worshiper.
yeah.
You want to approach them. If you know somebody, obviously, we
Mm,
cannot go door to door and give the message. When you know people, you want to give them the message. Like I had a colleague, and um, she was married to a Muslim guy, but she was from another part of the world. But she had no problem with Islam, and she would say, Masha Allah, Alhamdulillah, this and that. And I was like, wow, good candidate to give the message. Um, so I talked all about the message, the miracle and everything. Gave her the Quran, a copy of this translation. And few days later, and I asked, like, how did you find anything? You have any question? And she said she was very disappointed. Why homosexuality should be condemned? And they are
mhm,
gentle, nice people, loving, caring. And I said, I'm not condemning it. God is, right?
mhm,
And God knows best. Well, that's the thing, right? People lip
mhm,
service so much.
mhm,
Like you might think everybody believes in God, but when
mhm,
it comes to real commandments, people only pick and choose. That just really it comes to like how serious is religion been taken by majority of the world. Any religion, sincerely and with the core, thinking about God. It's not.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that comment you made earlier about condemning and how to approach this situation. Mashallah, God has given us different prophets and messengers, and what's wrong was with their community and how they tackled the situation. So we can learn a lot about from these messengers, like Lot, how he was dealing with his issue, um, and how to teach them. But all we can do is just tell them, like he's been telling them, this is wrong, until they had enough warning. And uh, people at the end of the day, they make their own decisions. And a lot of times, I mean, sometimes we feel like somebody is acting in such a way. And my sometimes thing is that, how would I approach someone? Like, I don't even know if this person is homosexual or not, because sometimes they just look normal, and you don't know what their private life is. So in that sense, I don't want to go to somebody and start telling them, and maybe that person get offended that, what do you think I am not like that. So how would you yeah, maybe this person will get upset with me just because the way I talk, you assume that I am like
uh-huh.
that.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of time, yeah, you don't know their personal life unless you see them
Mhm,
doing something wrong. Even like
mhm.
two people are walking together and you just want to approach them. How do you guys see this problem?
Well, I mean, of course, if someone tells you that they're gay, then you can have a conversation with them. Like, how could you tell otherwise? I mean, you can't.
And also, you can't talk to people who you're walking
Yeah,
with hands in
exactly.
hands or strangers. It's somebody you have rapport
Mm,
with.
Yeah.
You cannot give, like, otherwise there's billions of disbelievers, idol worshippers around us. We don't stop people and start giving them the message. Doesn't matter who they are, right? It's just who are close to you, who you know. Those are the only people we even dare to give the message, right? Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Like, for example, I know a lawyer, quite intelligent, right, in Toronto, and he goes to the masjid. Um, one masjid was built in a way whereby they thought that people should be all inclusive, and quite intelligent guy, and reads the Quran, but carry on this lifestyle. Like, what would you ever say to a person like that? Because they know what's in the Quran.
Yeah, we had some people who claimed to be submitters too, and they were actually going ahead with saying that you can be lesbians because it's not in the Quran. Even gays, because the same point of view that some Christians have. They justify that, they don't recognize that the problem with the people of law, even the Quran makes it explicitly clear that, these verses that I just read, it says you practice sex with the men instead of the women, right? And God is pointing out that it's their homosexual behavior because of which they were annihilated. But, some of these people, they believe that they were annihilated because they were involved in like gang raping them or something, and and so they think that is wrong, but homosexuality was not condemned. That's uh, some of their views.
Yeah, I actually heard that argument before. But then there's also, seeing that we're in this topic, right? There are some very different uh, people out there who does not fall in this category, but um, say for example, they're from waist down they're a guy, and from waist up they're a woman. How do we classify that?
Did anybody get that?
Yeah, I didn't understand the question. Could you repeat again? I'm sorry.
Actually, I we understand homosexuality is condemned, but there are some classification we don't know how to put those in category. Like recently, like about a week ago, I went to the store, and a girl, totally girl, from upper half is a total girl, and below I could tell it's a total boy. Uh, because of the kind of clothing they were wearing, I could tell. So I don't know how to classify that. How do you classify that?
It sounds like they were transsexuals, maybe. Is that
Transgender.
what you're saying?
I think it might fall in that category. So,
Hmm.
Salaman, you mean transgender, maybe?
Yeah, transgender. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah. So
same
where
thing.
where half of your body is a different sex
Gender, yeah.
gender, and the upper half is a different gender.
Well, gender is not based on what clothes you wear,
No looks.
right?
I'm talking about looks.
Well, looks also they can change, right?
Hmm.
But
I saw a documentary of. You remember? We saw a documentary of and the girl's dad was there, and she's not done any change. She's not done any change at all, and she doesn't want to be this way. However, upper half, she had never took any hormones or anything. Upper half, breast, girl face. Lower half, a total boy.
probably born with this. Some people with such issues, they can have surgeries to go either way. Yeah, there's some people who are born with almost, it's like yeah. In There are a lot of people in Pakistan. They're born with some kind of um, what you may call it, disability or something, that they have both
So how do
probably.
we classify that? Where, how do we put that?
I don't know. They go and usually seek medical consultation, and whichever is a better surgery for them, they go for that. Yeah, I know some people like that too.
But this does not fall on the lots people at all.
No, it's like if they decide, if doctors say, you should would be better person as a man, or just chances to become a full man, then you go for that surgery, or the woman. So, and then they live like that after the surgery. Yeah, I don't think they are like born, they're not those people born as men and then they feel like their soul is a female trapped in a body of a man. Uh, because, soul has no gender basically. It's what the society tells you, well, boys should be wearing like this and girls should be wearing like. People get confused, and they say, "Oh, I think I'm a girl." What does that supposed to mean? God has made you like a male or a female, so then you have specific roles that you choose that role according to God. But these people give in to their whatever the childhood they're experiencing. For example, I know somebody. It was a family in Pakistan. They were a couple of deaf and mute boys. They were younger and they had three other older sisters. They didn't know, they were growing up acting like those sisters, they wanted to wear clothes like those sisters. That's all they know as a behavior. So a lot of these issues are like now society is feeding them. No, you must be, if you have even these thoughts, this is it. You should live a non-godly life. I mean, only people who are sincere about God will look into it and not give in to their whatever lusts and whatnot. Otherwise, today's society just really is making them run towards that one choice.
So Pamela, I think what you're talking about is like hermaphrodites or like intersex, they call it nowadays, where you have people that are born with like both uh
Right.
both organs sometimes, or characteristics part of it. Their genitals are kind of messed up, like that said, like they're kind of deformed in a way. So they might want to get surgery and stuff, but at some point these people also choose to be either male or female, like.
So the question the answer I'm trying to get is that does not fall on the lots people, and it's totally okay if a person's born that way, and whatever they feel they are, if they if they're half and half and they feel they're a girl, they should get the surgery to fin- accomplish being a girl. If they're half and half, half girl, half boy, and they're feeling like a boy, they should get a surgery to make them complete as a boy. Is that so? That's nothing to do with Quran. I mean, that's not a lots of people. That's not part of lots of people.
Oh, that's just, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's kind of such a rare thing to see in Islam. God knows, I mean, how their situation. So I don't know, but obviously, people who are born as fully intact males are having sex with males, and fully intact, females, doing the same. It's like, that's what the Quran is talking about. But all these other anomalies, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what it's like. Mm. They're not normal, obviously. So
That's for sure. And when you see people like that in society, even I've seen people like that, I really feel for them.
Yeah, no, and I know some, societies don't treat them well. Those are I, I'm sure those are different categories that eventually they go through a surgery, or some don't even go for a surgery. I don't know. They're treated and misbehaved towards people, misbehave towards them, and like recently, Pakistan even gave them. There's a lot of community of those people, right? They call them hijaras. That they are recognized as human beings, so they can vote. Um, they most of them become entertainers, go to weddings and just perform. But they can also decide to get the surgery done and become one way or the other.
I have a question similar to this situation that uh, like a lot of people were not only doing all these things, but at the same time they were like gangsters. They would rape and do these kind of crimes against other people's will. Like when Lot has the two messengers came in a human form and they ganged up on his house and they were gonna do forcibly some badful act while I mean this was what the situation appears to be, where Lot has gone to that extent that he wanted to offer his daughters. So we clearly understand homosexuality was not only their problem. They had a lot of other stuff going on. There were gang raps and all the criminal stuff that are going against people, and that is we can understand. Today's terminology that rape and is far worse. Somebody who's doing adultery, both parties are agree to do adultery. It's not seen that bad, but if somebody rapes someone, that is considered extremely bad. That's a crime. So they were not only doing what you call that homosexuality, but they were doing all that. But I mean, not today. Nowadays, we see homosexuals. They don't do that kind of crimes. They have their own life. They are. That is true. That I've seen a lot of homosexual people, and they're one of the nicest people. They're always happy. They're always joking, and I mean, the one I have seen, you might have a different experience, and they don't bother anybody. I mean, I can tell you from my, but I have been approached with several of them, but then didn't learn that I'm not that not my piece of pie. But they don't force you or anything. But these people, lots of people were bad people. So how do you differentiate those uh, kind of people they were forcing in crime and rapes and all that compared to today's homosexual? They're peaceful, loving people. They're hardworking. They do their job and they're a productive part of the society. But in the private life, whatever they're doing, it's very their own personal choice, don't you think? I'm not defending them in any way, but it's just a question.
right, I think the verses are very clear about the evil behavior. You know, it's saying that you commit such an abomination, and God calls it an abomination, you know. I mean, they can be peaceful, loving, kind, anything else, but it doesn't negate the fact that they're committing an abominable act that's condemned by God, you know. So it doesn't matter they're doing it in their privacy or in public, but that's what they were annihilated for. They weren't annihilated for being, you know, gang rape, for example, you know. But the thing is, if you want to talk about that, I mean, that is still that still happens. Like what happened with the people of Lot. I mean, people are still, you know, gang raped, by homosexuals, for example. It still happens. Obviously, it doesn't happen publicly. Like, you know, it's not like the other homosexuals where they're saying, you know, it's all right and stuff like that. But you know, it's still a part of the problem. I mean, these people do these types of things, right? But obviously, you know, if somebody's is gang raped in this manner, obviously, you know, they're not gonna publicly come and, you know, like, you know, tell everyone, for example, like the way people come out and say they're homosexuals. But we know like stories of people being abused. You know, it doesn't matter if you're abused by one person or 10 people, you know, people are abused sexually now as they were being done before against their will. So that's also the same thing. But I mean, someone can be kind, loving, whatever. I mean, hypocrite can be very kind and loving, you know. But does that change the fact that they're a hypocrite, an evil person that will go to hell? I mean, it doesn't, right? So same with being homosexual or any other, you know, abomination for that matter, you know. I mean, you can commit any kind of, you can commit incest and be a very kind and loving person, for example. Does that mean you know, I mean, does that make you a good person? Does it?
You see, Adam, a large portion of society commits adultery, a very, very large portion. And all the people who commit adultery, they're really, really nice people. But God already also told us what the consequences of adultery is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. That you're right. Mass majority of people are doing idol worship, and that's a sin that is unforgivable. And God says, "God may forgive other sins," but this is unforgivable. And they are very nice, loving people, so that makes sense. What you're saying when God says something forbidden, and regardless of what situation is, like suppose God says stealing is forbidden. So if it's a person who steals people's money but is a nice person, that does not make him any better. Thank you for clarifying.
Um, when it comes to our personal, you know, if our personal life and well, chances are we must be um, working with all kinds of people, you know, the people openly gay or people are gay but hidden, and other who commit otherwise and whatnot. In today's society, basically no vice is bad, you know, unless it's a crime, you know, by government. So for us, God says, God does not stop you to, you know, be equitable with these people. I cannot run away saying, oh, one of my colleague is gay, and now I'm not supposed to talk to you. We can't do that. They're still humans, and they have the right to of free will to exercise whatever they want. What God is telling us is that what's going to happen to them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going to happen to them is that we already know that these are bad things that we shouldn't do. That these are even like God has called alcohol abominable act, gambling abominable act. So there are many acts which are abominable, not just homosexuality. But it is that one of the something to really, if you think about it, going against God's nature. You know, it's like complete rebellion in some way, and a very um, thoughtful decision to choose that I am going to live a life like this now. And I have seen these communities, there's so many other issues, psychological related, for example, alcoholism, drugs. They're like a very, and they're so much, I mean, promiscuous ways that they live their lives, and there's no loyalty until somebody really now these days get married. So it God knows this is something really bad for soul, that you've gone way too far to rebel against God's revelations. That you even he made you come to this world in one gender, and you want to be identified as this person. And we know like some celebrities have one man who has children and everything, grandchildren, and now he took surgery and became a woman. And after little time he has regrets now, like what on earth, like was something mentally not right, or you're being unappreciative of what God has given you. Seriously.
Also, you were commenting about earlier the miracle of 19. Uh, and that is so true. And when you read Surah 74, where the miracle is mentioned, that the verse says that it increases the faith of the faithful, or the one who believe, or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing. So it has a design to increase your faith and make you more and more stronger believer. So it's only going to make you stronger believer if you gain benefits out of it. If you just hear it and just accept it, it's not going to make you any benefit. If somebody tells you vitamin C is good for you, if you just take it like that, it's not going to benefit you until you go and take the medicine that's going to increase your immune system. So studying the miracle, like Moses, when he did all these miracles were happening, if these miracles were happening and you tell somebody go in a certain area, these miracles are happening, and it's like they just accept your statement that, oh yeah, go to that part of the world, the miracles are happening. I mean, that's not going to increase your faith unless you go to that area and look at yourself and see the ocean parting, and that's going to increase your belief. So the miracle of 19 is happening every second in the Quran. If you want to see all the miracles, you got to go and study the miracle and see the true value. I mean, learn from it, and it's going to make you wow. And until you feel that wow, it's 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 not going to give you the full benefit, or I don't know how much benefit will it give you. So it's amazing. It's right there in the appendix, and you start with the Bismillah, then 19 letters. The first revelation, 19 words. Um, the letter numbers, they are also multiple of 19s. 19's verse surahs before the Quran ends, 114 surahs, and all these things detail. And when you go surah, the initials to down to the surah number 3, where God says Alif Lam Mim, the beginning. And if you read, there's mention of Makkah in it, but God uses the word with Bakka, like B, because if you put Makkah with M, it's gonna violate the code. I mean, how precise is it that God? Who would have thought of that? Why people would thought, like, why God is using Bakkata, like with B, not with M? So these things will make you think that somebody, a very supreme power, had designed it. It's gonna increase your faith. Don't just accept it. Go out, as we are told that whenever information comes to you, verify it yourself. It's not only gonna make you believe it, it's gonna increase your belief more and more. And that is the key to, we should increase our belief more and more. That's gonna make us more and more closer to the certainty. We have such a valuable thing, the miracle of 19. We should read it. I would say like maybe daily or once in a while, to just read it, something about it, to increase our faith. Mashallah. Thank you. Are we still on?
Yes, we are on.
Okay.
There's a gap of silence.
Yes. I just want to make also a quick comment on that creature that we read about today. If you really, I mean, it's amazing how God used the word earthly material, and Solomon probably know a lot more than me about computers. It's not even my field, but what I know is that the chips that made with the CPU, the processor out of silicon, sand, and pretty much everything is made out of earthly material. God didn't say the word. See, the earthly material would have been something like a creature, but God specifically used from earthly material. God will made. And if you look at the computer, the way it works is just like human brain. There's a hard drive that stores all the information, and there's a RAM memory that runs the active programs, and the CPU is the processing. So our brain is very much like that. There's a hard drive in our brain that holds all the memory that we have, and there is a RAM that whatever we're thinking right now, what the, like right now we're doing cross study, that's like our current RAM that's working, processing. Like I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. That's currently what's going on. That you can call it as a RAM, and then there's a processing. How we are processing all the information coming and going out. There's a CPU that's controlling everything. It's amazing how it's so much like a human brain or any creature that walks on the earth. It's very similar to that, mashallah. Thank you. That's just a quick comment.
Adam, you just explain in very layman term how the computer works.
You did a very good job, Adam.
Mashallah.
Actually, there's a hadith about that, It says, uh, this is the beast which will emerge at the end of time when mankind has become corrupt and neglected the commands of Allah and changed the true religion. Then Allah will cause a beast to emerge from the earth. It was said that it will be brought from Mecca or from somewhere else, as we shall discuss in the details below. The beast will speak to people about matters. Ibn Abbas and Qatada said, also narrated from Ali, that it will speak words, meaning it will address them. And then it says, so and so said, Messenger of Allah came out from his room while we were discussing the matter and said, the hour will not come until these 10 signs: the rising of the sun from the west, the smoke, the emergence of the beast, all this stuff. There was another hadith, not this one. There's so
About the
many.
job.
Yeah. Well, is it Dajjal really? I'm looking for the one where it describes. Uh, yeah, beast will emerge. This one, I think it's this one. A beast will emerge from the earth, and it will be the staff of, Musa and the ring of Suleiman. It will strike the nose of the disbelievers with the staff, and it will make the face of the believer bright with the ring, until the people gather to eat. They'll be able to recognize the believers from the disbelievers.
Oh yeah, that's very much same with the 74.
Yes.
It says its head is like the head of a bull, and eyes are like the eyes of a pig, and ears are like the ears of the elephant, and horns are like the horns of a stag. Its neck is like the neck of an ostrich. Chest
Oh,
is
that's
like the chest of a lion. I can't read the rest.
yeah. They do give very vivid
Yeah,
description of
it's a
stuff.
horrible description of a computer.
Well, we're going there probably with all the robots coming in, and just before we know, that might happen. The Terminator movie.
That's so.
Yeah, the way they picture the Day of Judgment is so vivid that it just makes you freak out. One night I was just somewhere alone in the parking lot and I just started listening to the hadith. It's a long hadith and I become fearful in that parking lot.
Uh-huh.
My God, yeah. I get scared. I want to go inside the building or something.
You know what I don't get? In society, right? The people with status, the doctors and lawyers and all the profession engineers and all that. And the minute you tell them hadith is not, the man-made fabrication hadith, is not part of Islam, you see that these people lose any intellect that you would think they would have. And they would go after you so aggressively without even examining what they're saying. Today I read one hadith and it says that the it says the Prophet Muhammad said that truffle juice is like manna. It's a healing for mankind. And I'm like, okay.
What juice?
Truffles
Oh,
juice.
oh,
Truffles juice is like manna. It's a healing for mankind.
oh, oh.
Yeah, so my point is the hadith is so like
Oh.
ridiculous, and
Mm-hmm.
you wonder how people who have all the degrees in the world, the Muslims, how can they even believe these hadith and
Mm-hmm.
never question it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're hypnotized by Satan.
Yeah, they make you so scared that you can't even ask or object to a hadith. They're so scared.
When you're brainwashed, right? I
Yeah.
mean, when you're hypnotized, you can believe anything. Like I can hypnotize you and say, when you hear this sound, you're a chicken. And then how do you explain that, for example, I mean, it's kind of like similar to that, right? I mean, they're hypnotized when they're blinded. It doesn't matter like how much education they have. Like how do you explain, for example, somebody being a PhD in mathematics and not appreciating the mathematical miracle, for example, right? Or I mean, we have so many of these examples. So I
Yeah.
think they're similar. It's like it's divinely controlled by God.
Masha Allah for that.
And there's many other religions that are doing a lot of weird stuff, and there are people like doctors, scientists, and they go with their family and they do the same thing. That happens, yeah. And you're like, you are so smart. How could you do something like that? I think is this is where the Quran makes you begin to say, "Wow, that the word of God is so accurate that when people see the proof and miracle and the right in front of their eyes, and they still turn away and disbelieve, then God adorned their works in their own eyes, and God does that through devil, and this is God's system, and you see that around us, and we should be like we get confused. How could you do this? You see the right here, the proof, and this and that. I mean, the other day, a lady was asking me about the religion, and I keep telling that I only worship God because she thought that I'm a kind of a religious type person. And she said, "Can you pray or something?" I said, "I only worship God. That's it. I don't do any kind of any association with God." And that seems to bother that person. And I gave so many different examples from the verses, but uh, it just doesn't cross their mind. Such a black and white verses, and this is a blessing that we should not even us take as a granted, that we should appreciate God for us to understand. But when you look at other people, like such a simple, you can put 2 + 2 is 4, and then you can even show them right here. There are two apples, and there are two apples. How many apples? They will say 5. How come it's 5? It's 4. And you're just scratching your head. Oh, come on! I mean, it comes to that level that you just like you just don't understand what's going on. You live in a different planet or something. MashaAllah.
Masha Allah. In regards to verse 64, I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. It says, "Who is the one who initiates the creation, then repeats it? Who is the one who provides for you from the heaven and the earth? Is it another God with God? Say, show me your proof if you're truthful." So when I read this verse, it's in today's society, it's like majority of people and a lot of immigrants are starting to become that way. They're having the 1 and 2 child policy, and it's like because they're thinking, oh, it's going to be so expensive to raise children. But God's telling us so many places in the Quran that He provides for us. He provides for that human being before they're born. And it's actually starting to get to be an epidemic because in Canada, if you don't have a 3 children household, then when your children grow up, it's the tax money is not going to be there for the elderly, for the people who's receiving pension. And it's like I see a trend. I see a trend that people are just meeting status quo, having 1 or 2 children, just to say, yeah, I have children. But because and the reason they're doing that is because they're thinking more like children is a burden, and that they're the one who's providing for that child. When God tells us so many places in the Quran that He provides for us before we even got here on earth.
Any thoughts about verse 76, maybe?
Actually, Salman, when you mentioned the circumcision, it was on my mind. I was like, wait a minute, that verse is saying that this Quran settles many issue for the children of Israel, and the first thing that came to mind for me was circumcision.
SubhanAllah, yeah.
Yeah, mashallah, good point. Because they're all over the place. They're really invented so much.
Yeah.
Okay, inshallah, I'm gonna have to leave now. Thanks so much again, Salman,
Oh, you're
for
welcome,
covering
yourself. Thank
today.
you. Inshallah,
God
no
willing,
problem.
Saturday I'll do it.
Inshallah.
Okay.
God
Assalamu
help
alaikum,
you.
everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum,
Um,
Sister Jared. Salman,
So,
are you going to take
Assalamu
it off?
alaikum, Pamela. Mashallah,
Walaikum
thank you.
salam. Walaikum salam.
Have a good night, everyone.
You
good
too.
night.
yeah, same, inshallah. Yeah, I'll see you guys Saturday, inshallah.
Yeah. Salman, you're going to take it off live feed?
Yeah, inshallah, I'm gonna take it off. So, thank you guys, those who joined us on YouTube. God willing, our next study is going to be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and God willing, our teacher is going to be Nudrat. God willing, we'll see you next Saturday. God bless you guys. Assalamu alaikum.